So holding in, where are we holding? Good question. We're holding the new mimer. It's Megilah Nekras. It's a second mimer in the Dvar Malchus. For those of you that are following along with the Dvar Malchus, those of you that have the downloads, you don't have to worry if it's second mimer or first mimer. We will begin right now. Megilah Nekras B'chad Asar. The Megilah can be read. The Mishnah and the Megilah and the Gemara elaborates upon this. That in the times when they had to travel from the villages to the cities to listen to the Megilah, the Chachamim had a certain dispensation that they would be permitted to read the Megilah earlier than the prescribed time in the Megilah. It was not allowed to be read later, but earlier it was being read. How early could be read? So the Mishnah enumerates over there, depending on the circumstances, depending on the kviyas, what day of the week it comes out, because they anyway would go in every Monday and Thursday from the villages to the main cities. So depending on how the days of the week came out with Purim, the Megilah technically could be read either B'chad Asar, as early as the 11th of Adar, could be read B'Shnei Asar, the 12th of Adar, B'Shlosh Asar, the 13th of Adar, B'Arba Asar, and the 14th of Adar, B'Chamisha Asar, and the 15th Adar, Loi Pachas V'Loi Yoser. No less and no more. In other words, that if necessary, that's how far back you can go, but you can't go any further back than that. You're not allowed to read it any time before the 11th of Adar. The Derech Hagav, the Rebbe brings down that there's a Yerushalmi that says that the entire month it's permitted to read, even beginning from right away the first day of Adar. That's what's brought down there. But up till the 15th, after the 15th, you can't read. Okay, this is all the Nigla. Let's see how Chassidus looks at the concept of these dates and the significance of these numbers, or at least some of these numbers, when it comes to the reading of the Megilah. It says, which is Adam Marash. The Rebbe Marash explains, which is Adam Marash, who say, Purim Tafresh Ayin Hey, also in the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab of the Purim, 1915. That was said 50 years before this mimer was said. This is a mimer from Purim Tavshin Chav Hey in 1965. So 50 years beforehand was 1915. Based on the words of the Shalah Kodesh. Achad Osor hu b'chinas Vavke de Shem Havaya. 11 is the numerical equivalent of Vavke of Shem Yudke Vavke. 6 and 5. That's the matke of Shem of 11. The Chamisha Asar, Zewasim Batach Saliyah, B'Kriyas Megilah, the 15th, which that is the conclusion. It's the last and final day when we could read the Megilah. So therefore, it's the uppermost level, the highest most level of the reading of the Megilah. The mother derives, since it says that you should not pass from their children. So it also means you should not pass by this date. You cannot read. You can only read prior to certain dates that are established in Megilah, but you cannot go beyond those dates. You cannot pass those dates. So that also spiritually means that this is the highest, it's the pinnacle. At the level of 15 is the pinnacle and the highest most level. The Shem Havaya, it's the level of Yudke, of Shem Yudke Vavke. 15 is B'Gematria Yudke. Yud is 10 and Hey is 5. So you have that's the numerical equivalent of Yudke. So in other words, the first date of the options when one could read the Megilah and the final date corresponds to the Vavke and Yudke of Shem Yudke Vavke respectively. Well, and to note, Gamma you do also from what's known, Mispar, the Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Aleph as well, Biyachad, Usamachay. If you add all the possible dates on the calendar together, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you get a total of 65. What's the significance of the number 65? The Gematria Adonai. Shem Adonai is also 65. Yud is 10, Nun is 50, 60, Aleph and Dalet, that's 5. So you have 65. What's the significance of Shem Adonai? It also has to do with Shem Yudke Vavke. We explained how Yud Aleph and Tesvav have to do with Yudke Vavke. Yud Aleph is Vavke, Tesvav is Yudke. even the sum total, which is Samachay, in 65, also has to do with Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. How? Because it is Gematria Shem Adnai. So what? What does Adnai have to do with it? So it says, Shezo HaHeichol, because the level of Shem Adnai is called the chamber. Like it says, HaHeichol, like we know, Heichol Begematria Adnai. Heichel, the word Heichel is also the numerical equivalent of Adnai. It's also 65 because Lamed and Chav is 50 and Hey and Yud is 15, so you have 65. And that's the Heichel of Shem Havaya. Shem Adnai is the chamber, in other words, within which Shem Havaya resides in. You see this from the Pasuk that says Havaya is in this holy chamber. So we see that the level of Heichel, numerical equivalent of Adnai, is where Havaya resides in. And the level of Adnai, 65, Heichel, is the numerical equivalent of all these days, Yud Aleph through Tezvav. Okay, that's a side point that Rebbe says. Getting back to the significance of 11 and 15 being Vav K and Yud K. So it says, line 14, V'zel Megilah Nekras B'chad Asor. That's what means that the Megilah is read on the 11th. Hainum Shascholas Kriyas HaMegilah. Kfish Nekras Ma'atzmam. The beginning of the reading of the Megilah, the way it is read on its own from Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the way it has it read on its own. It's interesting. In other words, the Rebbe is being medayik over here that the word is Megilah Nikras. It doesn't say Koirim as a Megilah or Mutter Likres a Megilah, which is proactive. You read the Megilah, or it's permitted to read the Megilah. It says Megilah Nikras. It is read. In other words, we're not talking about us. It's talking about something higher, meaning that in Megilah Nikras B'chad Asor, there is the way the Megilah is read, like as if by itself through Shem Havaya, and that level, the way it's read by itself in Shem Havaya, Himebchinas Vavke, is from the level of Vavke. Why specifically the level of Vavke? Why not Yudke? Why not the whole Shem Havaya? Because the service of a person is no way going step by step. We start from below and then we go to above. So therefore, first we need to start with Vavke. First we need to start with the basics. First we need to start with the like Ma'aseh B'Poyos with Vavke indicates Torah and mitzvahs as Vavke, like we have in the Geras HaTeshuvah. And then V'achar kach Roishe Magia Shemaim, like the ladder of Yaakov Avinu's dream, that we said the Sulam is Murtav Arza, the ladder is standing on the ground. And then the Malachim rise up, but that's also indicative of the ladder that each one of us has to climb, that it's always rising higher and higher. So we begin on the lower rungs of the ladder, we begin with Vavke. And then it reaches the top, reaches the above. Then we reach to the level of Yudke, until we come to Yudke, the level of the 15th. That's why it starts off Megilah Nikras B'chad Asor, and then it reaches all the way to Barbasar and Chamisha Asor, which also helps to understand another question one could ask. Since the obligatory and regular times of reading Megillah is on the 14th and the 15th, so why does the Mishnah start off with the B'diavad option? With the option that if the people are in the villages and they can't make it, etc., so then they're allowed to go back all the way to the 11th. Start off with the halacha. This is the first Mishnah Masechta Megillah. Tell us first that you read the Megillah on the 14th and the 15th. Then you work your way backwards. But if you can't, you can do it in this date, you can do it in that date, you can do it in the other day. But based on the pnimius understanding of the matter, what the inner meaning of what's going on over here, since the first date represents Vavke, the final date represents Yudke, so it makes sense that he's going in a progression, that a human being has to progress step by step. So he starts off first with the letter of Vavke, the lower level, Shem Havaya, the level of Yud Aleph, the 11th, and then he works his way up to the 15th, which is the level of Yudke. Line 19, Zel Sheini the Megilah Nekras Bachados or Chul, Lefnei Arbas or Chamisha. So that's why also that the fact that the Megillah is read on the 11th, before the 14th and before the 15th, is when, for who? A person living in a regular town where they have a minyan every single day and so on, he doesn't read on the 11th. It's only Hurak B'Kfarim, that they are only in villages. They are lower even than large towns that are not surrounded by a wall. Top of the next page, the large towns read in on the 14th. In other words, like this, there's different stages. Just like there's the Yud K versus the Vav K, there's, practically speaking, there's the villages. They have the option, depending on how the calendar comes out, to read either the 11th, the 12th, the 13th. Then there's the people in the open cities, the Ayardas, Gedolos, what he calls it. They read on the level, they're on the level of reading on the 14th. And then there are those that are in cities surrounded by walls, they read on the 15th. So it's not only that the people that read on the 11th, 12th, and 13th are not in a level of that the Mukafas Chayma that read on the 15th, but they're not even on the level of those that are open cities, big, larger cities, are not villages that read on the 14th. So he said, now he's going to explain what is these levels. Why is a big city considered a greater level than a village? So he's going to bring it from what the Gemara says. It says, Ki ezi yir gedola, what is considered a large town? Kol sheyesh ba'asara batlon. Any town that has 10 people that are sitting without working, doing no work, rather they're involved in holy activity. The betelim memlachtam, they are not doing work. Where they're supported by the community. But what are they doing in their free time? They're either in service of the community, they're involved in community affairs, and therefore they do not have the time and capability to be able to work to sustain themselves. Or they are sitting and learning Torah all day, like a Bachar in Yeshiva or a young man in Koil. So what makes a city a large city? What's the concept of a city? Somewhere that has a minimum number of 10 people that are being supported by the community because they are doing good things. The klal is saying in a year, and the general idea of a city, like it says in the pasuk, God that Hashem is great and very much praised in the city of Hashem, meaning that we find that Hashem's greatness is in the city. Kivin shagod lavai. Since Havai is great, therefore also the city, which is the city of Hashem, is great. The Rebbe makes an interesting connection over here. It says, God lavai b'ir alakenu. If it's a city of Hashem, and since Hashem is great, so the city is also called an Ir Gedolah. So when the Gemara says over there, what's considered a great city, what's considered a large city, that's because it has a lot of people in it. Meaning, that's a simple meaning, but the spiritual meaning is it has the Eibishter in it, who's great. But until the simple literal meaning of what's mean a great city, yes, by Yishuv Gadol, there's a big settlement of people. Anything less than that, it does not have these levels of, however you want to talk about it, revelation of godliness, the significance of 10 people being devoted to communal affairs, to Torah mitzvahs, and they're supported by the community, however you want to refer to it. But a village does not meet that higher standard of spirituality. And despite the fact that they are on a lower level in the city, Kol Makom still in all. Also in the village, there is all the matters of the light and the joy and Sasain and the Yikar, which Chazal say, Oida Zutaira, the Simcha that's going on Yom Tov, Sasain that's going on the Bris Milah, Yikar that's going on Tefillin. In other words, despite the fact that they're not on that great spiritual level like a city, they still have avoida, they still have what they are doing. There's also the idea of the Megilah being read on the 11th. In other words, they attain at least that base level, the level of Vavke. They might not hold yet by the level of Yudke. But we don't remain over there. The purpose is, like we said before, we have to go step by step. So we start off on the lower rung. We start off with Vavke. But the purpose is to go higher and higher. Till afterwards we come to the ultimate perfection. In the Chamisha Asar, that's the idea of the 15th. That's what we're standing in now when the Rebbe was saying this mimer by the Fabrengen of Purim. It's already, the Rebbe always Fabreng Purim after, like most Fabrengens, the Rebbe Fabreng the day finishing. The day finishing Yom Tov, the day finishing Purim, and so on, not the night going into Purim. So therefore, by the time the Fabrengen was, it was already after nightfall, and therefore it was the 15th. And the significance of the 15th is the Kayim Masira, that the moon, which is Bechinas HaMalchus, is in a level of Bashla Musa. It's full, it's complete, just like the physical moon, which is complete on the 15th. So the number 15 signifies the idea that Malchus is perfect and complete. As we know, all the tzimtzumim, all the constrictions are a resultant of what's called the moon being lessened and decreased at the beginning of Maaseh Bereishis, which is also the tzimtzumim that's to be found in Malchus. So when Malchus is complete, when the moon is full spiritually, the 15th of the month, that's the significance of a greater revelation of godliness. Also in the name Yudke Vavke, one works themselves up to reach how there's a Yudke in such a way that we reach to the level of Yudke. Any questions? Okay, Ois Beis, page Chafei, line 17. Hine Klolos in the Megilah Nekras, Bachadas or Chulad the Taxa Shlemis Bachamisha. Also, the general idea that Megilah is read on the 11th, etc., until the ultimate perfection on the 15th. Kashrun and Klolos in the Chaga Purim is connected with the general idea of the Yom Tov of Purim. Calling Yom Purim Hoya the Yayin, because all matters of Purim took place through wine. As we know, that the reason that there's an encouragement to get intoxicated on Purim, because every single step of the way happened with wine. Starts off with a party that Achashverosh made. Then it continues with the party that they made afterwards when they found Esther Amalka. And then the way that Esther defeated Haman was through inviting them both twice, one day and the next day through a party. So the whole miracles of Purim started with a party, but the party is a mishteh hayayin. It's a party of wine. That's the main thing over here, that it's the level of wine. So Purim has to do with wine. Some people are makbid that actually to make sure to drink wine, not so much mashka on Purim, but specifically wine. The level of wine, that's the level of bina. So let's see on the side of the page, on the left side in the commentary, what's the idea, the association between yayin and bina. On the left side in the commentary, line 59. Like it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus, and like it's brought down to the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, when it comes to yayin, it says, I have stopped from the wine, that makes rejoice gods or leaders and men. So the Alter Rebbe explains, since it is known, Bina Eim Habonim Hi Hasmeicha. Since Bina, which is the mother of the children, she is the one that's joyous. In other words, we associate wine with joy. And we know that Bina has to do with joy because since it's the mother of the children, it gives birth to the level of the midas, so that's also joyous. Like it says, the mother of the children is joyous. It explains what does it have to do one with the other. What's the idea of joy? Joy is about something that's revealed outward. And in general, when a person's in a state of joy, so there's less, he has less inhibitions. I'm not even talking about drunken joy. I'm talking about general joy tends to make a person loosen up. And it's always brought down in Chassidus that a person that's normally introverted and very private, when it comes a time of a joy, like the wedding of his only child, he will be all of a sudden very articulate and verbose and dancing and jumping and so on, because that's a tendency of joy. Joy is about revelation, and that's in general. Joy is something that's revealed outward. Tainug, delight, is something that's inward. A person could be enjoying themselves and having pleasure within themselves, but it's not something necessarily manifested outward. Joy is essentially, simcha is usually manifested outward. And that, and the idea of Gilu Yahelam has to do specifically with Bina. The Alter Rebbe says, V'lochein, nimshach davke mibchinas Bina, it specifically comes from the level of Bina. Who, that's the situation. What happens by Bina? Bina is when the person understands and comprehends those concealed ideas in Chachma. Since Chachma is only a point, it's only a flash, it's not yet explained. Comes Bina and reveals that from the concealment and causes us to understand. So then, that he understands it and he comprehends it very well. That's when the person is joyous. In a practical way, that when a person understands something well, so that's when there's the joy comes out. Just like the Bina is a revelation of what was hidden before in Chachma. As opposed to when the person doesn't understand it and comprehend it well yet, it's still concealed in this power of Chachma. It's not totally revealed. Yes, it has a revelation of Chachma, but that's not a true revelation. He will not be receiving any type of delight or joy whatsoever. So that's the association of Yayin with Bina, because Yayin is the level of Simcha, and so is the level of Bina. So Yayin has to do with Bina. Now that we know that all matters of Purim have to do with Bina, because all matters of Purim have to do with wine, let's go back to the text on line 21. The level of Bina, as we know, is the first Hey of Yudke Vavke. Not the final Hey of Vavke, which is the level of Malchus, which also makes sense, the idea that he says earlier that Vavke, Yudke is the level of 15, which is Kayim Masira Bashlamusa, because in truth, even the first day and the last day are related to each other, but that's a separate point. But the main point is that the Hey is the level of Bina, which we said is a level of wine. So it makes sense that Yudke, which is the higher level, which is what we're hoping to work our way up from the Vavke, from the 11, we're working our way up to the 15. From the Vavke, we're working our way up to Yudke. And Purim, everything was through wine, which is Bina, so that's the Yudke, the Hey of Yudke. So the Rebbe is going to say, but that's only the Hey. We're talking about reaching the letter of Yudke, the level of Yudke, not just the Hey. The Rebbe adds in line 23, in addition to this, Shagam HaYud, the Yudke, also the letter Yud of Yudke, comes out afterwards in the first Hey of the level of Bina. So when the person attains the level of Hey, the first Hey of Yudke Vavke, so it's not just the Hey alone, but since the Yud joins with the Hey, so they also attain the level of the Yud that comes into the Hey as well. Half of page Chavav. Amnam Gam Bechinas Bina. Shebetachlis Hashleimus, the Megilah Nekras Kamisha Asar, Bechinas Yudke, also the level of Bina. That's totally perfect. Of the Megilah Nekras in the 15th, the level of Yudke, Yadayin Inyan Shalavon of Asar. It's still something that has to do with understanding and comprehension. The ultimate perfection of the Yom Tov Purim is love to arrive at a level of Adar Yada, in other words, to a level that transcends comprehension. He should not know as high as knowledge is, and even when it's impacted by Chachma, it still has to do with understanding. What does it mean? That Chamisha Asar is on the one hand the level that we're attaining, but then afterwards we have to attain even more so Adar Yada. So the Rebbe is going to explain that even in Purim itself, there's a stage that's pre Adar Yada, and there's a stage where it's still the idea of Yada. It's interesting because we had last week that the Rebbe says that Adar Yada is something that applies the entire 25 hours of Purim. It's not like other mitzvahs that Megilah, it's twice, once by night, once by day, Matan Slav Yoinim, Shalach Manas, the Suda, that's only during the day, and your Yoitze, whatever. Adar Yada is the entire day. The entire 24 hours begins with every moment of Purim. But the Rebbe also said, I think I might have mentioned it in the Sikha, where it speaks about this very same topic as well. In Chelik Zayin, the Rebbe said that the Adar Yada does not mean that literally the person is in a state of Adar Yada, like he's soon going to explain why there's a certain time in Purim when the person is not Adar Yada. But the point of Adar Yada expands throughout the entire Purim. So the effect and the idea and the concept of Adar Yada is something that permeates the entire Purim. Let's see. When is it a time of Bina, Yudke, understanding, and when is it a level of Adar Yada? He says in line 5, who the idea behind this is Bina, he based creates a Megilah. The idea of comprehension, the idea of understanding, that's during the reading of the Megilah. A person cannot be Adar Yada when he's reading the Megilah. It has to be in a state of intention. You have to listen to what's going on, not be so out of your mind that you don't hear what's going on in the Megillah. And this is a halacha that you have to be able to concentrate and understand what you're listening to. But Megilah, it's impossible for a person to be in a state of Adar Yada when he's listening to the Megillah. But after the Megillah that's read on the 15th, the level of Bina, which is the level of letter Hey of Yud K. So once we have attained that level, we have already had the Bina, we've had the understanding. We've Megillah Nekras. Literally, we said when you're reading the Megillah, it needs to be in a way that you are using your mind. And you're using your mind in the way of Yud K, that you have the level of understanding. So then you can arrive at the level of Yud, like we said before, that the Hey is not just the Hey alone, but the Hey is connected to the Yud. But and the level that's connected to the Yud is even something that transcends the Yud. Yud, including also the point, the spitz on top of the Yud. So this explains, the Alter Rebbe when he explains that the Yud is the level of Chachma. He also explains that there is the point on top of the Yud, that's a level of Rotz. That's a level that's beyond reason. So the Hey is, like we said, the number 15 includes in it the Hey and the Yud together. And the Yud includes also the point on top of the Yud. So the point on top of the Yud is Adar Yada as a level that's beyond comprehension. Beyond the measure and limitation of understanding and comprehension. So that is what we are working our way up. We are going from Vavke, that's the first level, the level of Kfarim, level of the villages, the level where there isn't such a great revelation of Yud Ke Vavke. Then we work our way up to the Hey, then we have it at the Yud, and that is still the level of understanding. Yayin, blind, has to do with Bina, until we finally hit the level of Adar Yada, above and beyond. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how all of this now needs to be brought down into the regular days of the week. Any questions?